Hello, Scott here from 100% LCFC. Been asked by Redmen TV to come up with a Liverpool-Leicester combined 11 prior to the up-and-coming game this Saturday between the two teams. A little bit more difficult than I expected, actually. I could go on about a vast amount of players, but I've gone with a lineup that I sort of grown up with, I suppose, since I've been following football, and some of my firm favourites from the 90s up until now. I've gone with a 3-5-2 formation because I wanted to pack out the midfield. There's a lot of quality midfielders that I want to put in there for both Liverpool and Leicester. And it's a little bit more unorthodox than what many people would choose. So in goal, I'm going to go with Pepe Reina, quality goalkeeper. There's a number of keepers I could have chose from either side. I could have gone back as far as, the 60s to Gordon Banks and into the 70s with Peter Shilton, up into the 80s, 90s with Bruce Grobbelaar for Liverpool. But Pepe Reina, I think, kind of stands out as one of the top performers. So he's in there as my goalkeeper. I've gone with the back three. Steve Walsh for me. Massive part of Leicester's history, or recent history, should we say. Signed for us in 1986, stayed with us till 2000, so I had 14 years at the club. Holds a record, I think, for most number of red cards in the Football League for one player, which is not a record to be proud of, but that's who he was. He was a tough man, a tough captain, sat in that defence and popped up with a lot of goals, and we actually used him as a striker on a number of occasions when we had injuries or we were pushing to get back into a game. So Steve Walsh sits in the middle of that back three. Talking of characters and talisman, Neil Razor-Ruddock for me. Fond memories of some of his tough tackling for Liverpool. He took no prisoners. I don't think he'd last very long on the pitch in today's game, but he was another character, certainly on the pitch and off the pitch. So he goes in there as the other hard man next to Steve Walsh. And then I think Jamie Carragher's got to go in there. He was with Liverpool from the start and until the end of his career. And shame he finished with England so early, but he had his reasons why he didn't want to continue with England. But I'd like to have seen him sort of continue a little bit more with England, but for whatever reason he didn't. Capable footballer, great defender, very, very reliable. So he sits in there with the two tough men as a bit more of a player to keep the other two under control, should we say. Up into midfield then, Steve McManaman on the right wing, very, very skillful player. One of few English players to go abroad and do well. Obviously did well at Real Madrid, but came up with some great goals and some brilliant pieces of football. Very, very skillful, and fond memories of him taking on players and coming up with some cracking goals. In the centre, Muzzy Is It, another Leicester player that brings back fond memories and still has a good connection like Steve Walsh does with the club. Stayed with us through thick and thin, had opportunities to go elsewhere, stayed with us through administration, through relegation, through promotions, and he has to go in there as a legend for Leicester through his commitment to the club. Alongside him, his teammate Neil Lennon of the O'Neill era. He was a little bit less dynamic than Muzzy Is It, but more of a holding midfielder. But together, them two were brilliant. Popped up with the odd goal, but a general playmaker really in that centre midfield. And then I can't leave him out. I've got to put him in there, and that's the talisman that is Steven Gerrard. Again, he was with Liverpool, helped them win some major trophies. Sadly, couldn't quite get the Premier League to his trophy cabinet, but I remember that Champions League where he drove that team back from that 3-0 down to draw 3-3 and take it to penalties against AC Milan. So he's got to sit in there. And then the surprise of the 11, I think, will come to most for me. Steve Guppy out on the left wing. Always remember Steve Guppy, again, back in the O'Neill days. He was an exciting player, took players on, was quite skillful, popped up with the odd quality goal. And I remember he was sort of second to David Beckham, I think it was at the time, for crosses, for assisted goals. So he's got to go in there just as a firm favourite from my growing up with Leicester. And then up front, more modern day, Jamie Vardy's got to go in there. His rise from non-league to the Premier League and breaking the record last season with 11 consecutive goals and scoring 24 goals in the end and making his rise into the England squad. He's got to sit in there. And then the final player I've copped out, or pardon the pun, I've copped out a little bit because I've already chose 5 Leicester. I've already chose 5 Liverpool. I'm going to go with Emile Heskey, who obviously represented both. Frustrating player at times. He was a big burly player and should have been stronger than he was and often ended up on the floor, but he came up with some goals. Certainly for Liverpool, he had one cracking season where he scored many goals, but he was more of, about his assists and his pace and his power that forced defences open and allowed other people to score. And I remember he got called back into the England squad as a bit of a saviour, really, and came up with the goods in terms of assisting the England strike force. So he finishes my Liverpool v Leicester 11. So to recap then, Pepe Reina in goal, Steve Walsh, Razor Ruddock, Jamie Carragher, Steve McManaman, Neil Lennon, Muzzy Is It, Steven Gerrard, Steve Guppy, Jamie Vardy and Emile Heskey. I think that is quite a decent team, quite a formidable team, and would do very well in the Premier League in this day and age. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video. Comment your thoughts below of who you would like to see in your Liverpool Leicester 11. Enjoy the game at the weekend. Thank you.